Good afternoon, everybody. Hope and pray that you're doing well. And today we're going to be reading out of Psalms 13, 1 through 6, and Psalms 142, verses 1 through 7. And Psalms 13, verses 1 through 6 says, How long, Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me? How long must I wrestle with my thoughts, and day after day have sorrow in my heart? How long will my enemy triumph over me? Look on me and answer, Lord my God. Give light to my eyes, or I will sleep in death. And my enemy will say, I have overcome him, and my foes will rejoice when I fall. But I trust in your unfailing love. My heart rejoices in your salvation. I will sing the Lord's praise, for he has been good to me. And Psalms 142, verses 1 through 7 says, With my voice I cry out to the Lord. With my voice I plead for mercy to the Lord. I pour out my complaint before him. I tell my trouble before him. When my spirit faints within me, you know my way. In the path where I walk, they have hidden a trap for me. Look to the right and see, there is none who takes notice of me. No refuge remains to me, no one cares for my soul. I cry to you, O Lord, I say, you are my refuge, my portion in the land of the living. Attend to my cry, for I am brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me. Bring me out of prison, that I may give thanks to you, to your name. The righteous will surrender me, for you will deal bountifully with me. And life is filled with wonderful moments of joy, wonderful moments of excellence and peace, isn't it? But life is also filled with trouble and pain, unfortunately. Jesus himself affirms this unfortunate reality. In John chapter 16, verse 33, he tells his disciples, I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. Also, during his extensive collections of teachings on the mountain, Jesus declared, Therefore, do not be anxious about tomorrow, for tomorrow will be anxious for itself. Sufficient for the day is its own trouble. Jesus tells us not to worry about tomorrow because today has enough trouble of its own, and I think we can all agree with that. When we become followers of Jesus Christ, we do not obtain an exemption from trials and sufferings. Being children of God does not make us immune to experiencing the storms of life. We experience trials and tribulations and storms just like everybody else does. And just like everybody else, life is brutal at times. Life is brutal at times for everyone. Rejection, betrayal, loss, abandonment, death, loneliness, failure, unemployment, evil, injustice, loss of income, and depression ran rampant in our broken world, not yet redeemed world. All of these things can cause us to experience pain, grief, anger, and hurt. And when it comes to dealing with our pain, grief, anger, and hurt, we often respond in one of three common ways. One, we detach. Rather than facing our emotions, we merely proclaim to ourselves and others, it doesn't matter, I'm okay. We try to become emotionless. We try to become cold and disconnected. Second, we fake it. We simply put on our fake smiles, pretend everything is okay, and when someone asks how we are, we quickly say we are fine. In reality, however, we aren't dealing with our emotions and we aren't fine. Or three, we distract ourselves. Instead of confronting our pain, we attempt to escape it through things like drugs, alcohol, shopping, work, or binge watching a show on Netflix. But none of these things are a healthy way of dealing with life's problems. Because all of these things involve avoiding the problem, and when we avoid life's problems, they don't go away. They tend to get worse and worse and worse as we ignore them. But there is, however, a healthy way of dealing with life's problems. God invites us to cast our burdens, our worries, our cares onto Him. Peter tells us to be in the habit of casting all anxieties on Him because He cares for you. And that's in 1 Peter chapter 5, verse 7. And the Psalms also tell us, cast your burden on the Lord and He will sustain you. He will never permit the righteous to be moved. Psalms 55, verse 22. But the idea among the world today that we would deny these emotions because they're negative, deny the pain and the troubles in our life, is totally absent and foreign to those who are in the Bible. In fact, part of placing our faith in God is pouring out our heart and all of its emotions to God. Trust in Him at all times, O people. Pour out your heart before Him. God is a refuge for us. It says in Psalms chapter 62, verse 8. David, referred to by God as a man after God's own heart, understood this and often poured out his heart to God and the book of Psalms. There's a book called Spirituality of the Psalms. And in this book, the Psalms are organized in 3 general themes. Psalms of orientation. It's in this time of our life is good. We can articulate our gratitude for God's blessings with joy, with delight, and with thankfulness. And the reliability of God and His faithfulness. Then you got Psalms of disorientation. This is the time in which we experience hurt, isolation, suffering, despair, and even death of our loved ones. This time of our lives provokes rage, resentment, self-pity, and complaints within us. And then you got Psalms of orientation, of new orientation. This is the period of life when we once again are overwhelmed with God's goodness, new gifts and blessings. Joy replaces despair and life overcomes darkness. And the Psalms of disorientation are also referred to as Psalms of lament. The dictionary defines lament as to mourn aloud and a crying out in grief. But unfortunately today, lamenting is not a very popular topic. In churches, we talk about praising God, which we should because He's worthy of it. Rejoicing in God because of everything that He's given us. But we also need to lament. As important as it is to thank God, we also need to lament. And it's kind of ironic, this absence of lamenting, since 50 to 70% of the Psalms are laments. An entire book of the Bible is named after it. David was forced to flee because of the king's repeated attempts to kill him. David fled to the wilderness. Staying on the move, Saul and his army hunted him. On one occasion, while hiding in a cave, David wrote, "With my voice I cry out to the Lord. With my voice I plead for mercy to the Lord. I pour out my complaint before Him. I tell my trouble before Him. When my spirit faints within me, You know my way. In the path where I walk, they have hidden a trap for me." On another occasion, the troubles, fears, pain, and pressure of life overcame David. He could not understand why God was not answering his prayers. In David's pain, God appeared absent. Being completely blunt with God, David poured out his grief and sorrow. "How long, O Lord, will You forget me forever? How long will You hide Your face from me? How long must I take counsel in my soul and have sorrow in my heart all the day? How long shall my enemy be exalted over me? Consider and answer me, O Lord my God. Light up my eyes, lest I sleep the sleep of death. So David understood the importance of lamenting. David lamented quite often, but he also praised God, thanked God, but he also lamented. He understood the importance of lamenting when we've lost that today. God longs for us to come to him and pour out our hearts with all of our emotions. We have to learn to enter our pain and embrace what comes with that pain with God. We must also understand and acknowledge those negative feelings. Acknowledge that they're not an act of unbelief. Instead, as John Mark Comer stated, God took David's raw, brutally honest lyrics, gushing with fear, anxiety, doubt, depression, and questions about God's faithfulness, and made them part of the inspired scriptures. God gives us the freedom to talk to him through prayer. A lament is a form of prayer. The point is not to vent to God, but to bring all of our pain to God. It is our heartfelt and honest conversation with God in which we discover a place of intimacy with him. It is when we bring our raw and edited emotions and pain to God that we encounter him. That's why in all but one of the Psalms of lament, the person pouring out their heart to God moves from pleading with God to a place of renewed trust and hope in God. Psalm 13 ends with David declaring, "But I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me." And as followers of Jesus in today's time and today's culture, we have to learn to lament. First, we turn to God. Again, in Psalms 142, David declared, "I pour out my complaint before him. I tell my trouble before him." When we experience pain, darkness, sorrow, trouble, or trials, we do not detach, we do not fake it, we do not distract ourselves. Instead, we run to God because he is our King, he is our refuge, and he is our salvation. Second, with our raw emotions, we cry out for help. David passionately prayed, "Attend to my cry, for I am brought very low. Deliver me from my persecutors, for they are too strong for me." David was brutally honest in his pleas. "How long, O Lord, will you forget me forever? How long will you hide your face from me?" And then we place our trust and confidence in God. In Psalm 13, David concludes his lament by declaring, "But I have trusted in your steadfast love. My heart shall rejoice in your salvation. I will sing to the Lord because he has dealt bountifully with me." When we learn to lament before God, we go on a journey. We go on a journey from despair to trusting in God. Remember, God is not shocked by our emotions. No matter how we feel, we need to pour out our hearts to God and lament. God is with us. God is with you listening. This is where God meets us in our pain and in our trials. Amen.